Welcome everyone to the very first episode of the Optimal Podcast. This is something that we're very excited about. It's been a dream of ours to finally launch this, and we're fortunate enough and thankful that we're getting it done now. So the point of this podcast is to have genuine conversations with one another, but to also teach the viewers valuable life lessons, not just on the field, but off the field as well. We've learned a whole lot of things between you and I, and I think it's something that is definitely worth sharing. So we're real excited for it.
Happy to have everyone on board.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ryan Bouchard. This is my brother, Adam. Just a little bit about ourselves. We have played pretty high level soccer. I played a little bit down south in Argentina. I played with the provincial team. I spent some time with Toronto FC Academy. I've been in the youth systems here in the GTA in Burlington, Oakville. So I do have quite a bit of knowledge with the grassroots program, the rep, and then all the way up to the professional leagues. Adam's resume speaks for itself. I mean, he's been up, through the rep systems as well, but he took a little bit of an unorthodox path. He went to Uruguay when he was 16. He signed his first professional contract down in Uruguay with Defensor. After that, you ended up getting the call to the Canadian men's national team. So U17 actually. You did your first tournament there. Where was it? Dubai? Not to Dubai, right?
Yeah, that was for the World Cup, and I think first camp is in Mexico, yeah.
So Mexico,
yeah.
And you did Dubai with the U17s.
Yeah.
And then you were with the Pan Am team, was that U23?
Yeah, U23.
U23, and then
few U20 camps too.
You've obviously, been with the provincial program as well, but that's, that was before the national team. And then once you came back from Defensor, you obviously signed with Toronto FC. You signed with the USL team. You had a few caps with the first team as well. So Adam's been everywhere. He's played at the highest levels. He's played in front of thousands of fans. And one of the coolest experiences I had was actually going out to watch you in Hamilton it was the opening game was Team Canada versus Team Brazil.
Yeah, that
was an unbelievable game.
Yeah,
I mean, that alone, I couldn't imagine. In your shoes, I mean, how old are you? You got to be like 20, what was it, 21?
I might have even been younger, yeah. 20, that was my 21. First big crowd.
And that was like, even for me, I watched, I was out at quite a few games in Argentina when I was there, and that atmosphere was the most intense atmosphere I've seen in Canada for sure.
For sure.
It doesn't even, it's not even close to a TFC game or anything like that, right? Because I've seen you with TFC as well, and it was apples to oranges there.
Yeah, it was really like the equivalent of an MLS playoff game. Because
No, go ahead.
No, because just like I remember when I went out for the national anthems and whatnot, and I remember thinking like, I can't even scream to the guy beside me. It's that loud. You know what I mean? Like it was a good thing to experience in Canada because you don't get that type of passion in atmospheres a lot. But it was good.
No, it was one of those things too. Like there's nothing as a sibling, and I couldn't imagine our parents, but as a sibling. You see your big brother walking out there onto the field, and you're playing against some of the best players in the world in Brazil. And some of those guys went on. I'm pretty sure one of them was playing with Chelsea. I can't remember.
Yeah, there's a few of them.
There were some of them, and you're watching, and you're like, holy cow, these guys are like different gravy. And I remember, you could talk a little bit more about it, but I remember watching and like. We can go on about how you're feeling before the game and when kickoff started, but I remember at one point. You got the ball and you slipped.
Yeah.
And that was like right at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
So how do you even deal with like, this is probably like the biggest game
that I played to. In
your career.
Yeah.
How do you you start the game, you slip and they almost go down and score.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's just like you don't know until you're in it, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, when you're in the game, it's like when you're in battle. You know what I mean? You don't think about what this looks like or what it's going to come off as when you're in it. You're in it. You gotta survive, and you gotta beyond survive. You gotta perform. You know what I mean? And So when that happened, I was thinking in my head, I was like, let's just play on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was locked in, and I was like, there's 80 odd, 70 odd minutes left to play. You know?
Well, that's one of the things too. Pep Guardiola said it best. He was talking about Phil Foden, and he was saying that Phil's one of those players where there was one, I can't remember which game it was. There was one game in particular where he had like 2 or 3 really good scoring opportunities, and he missed. And then towards the end of the game, he ended up scoring. And he was like, in this sport, you have to have the memory of a goldfish.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter how you start, it's all about how you finish. You can miss 2 or 3 really good opportunities, but as long as you score in the end, nobody's going to remember the misses.
Exactly. And that's why I always tell kids that we train, it's just like the reason in large part why Ronaldo scores so much is not that he's an insane finisher, is that he shoots more than anyone.
Yeah.
So when he's, I don't know, he starts the game and he's got 3-4 shots and they all, some of them are poor, some of them are testing the keeper, but he just keeps cracking them. You know what I mean? And that's why. It's just like no matter what, your confidence is undeterred. And like the funny thing is when we were, it's funny, like thinking back on it in hindsight, I didn't think about it in the moment. When we were at that game and you know, pre-game you do your team huddles. So we were doing our team huddle when we got in, and all of us got in, captain says a few words or whatever, and it's loud. And we walk in and when we're in the team huddle, we do a little head pop and we look over to the other team, and you see all the Brazil players, they're on their knees and they're like this and they're looking up, and I forget who it was, but one of them looked in and they went in the huddle, and it was almost like this moment where it's just like, yeah, we're you know, but it like, you know, it was all jokes, but it's just like, it was this feeling that these guys are completely undeterred by the moment. They're unaffected. And that comes from the soccer environment where they were playing in and where they're breeding in. It's just like, and I realized in the hindsight, it's just like for 90% of our roster on Team Canada, I would even say 99. That was the biggest crowd they had played in front of up until that date. And Team Brazil, Team Uruguay, who ended up winning the tournament, a lot of my teammates, that was the environment they play in every weekend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was the difference. It's just like completely unfazed, but it's reps playing in front of big crowds, you know?
And that's kind of, you know, a good example to say to that is like the equivalent would be if I'm going into a test at school and I don't study before the test, I go in and I am just like, I'm so nervous. But even if I study for days on end prior to that test, you're still going to go in with nerves, but the nerves are obviously amplified when you're not studying. It's the same thing with that, right? Like you can practice, but then once the bright lights come on, it's a completely different beast.
Completely different beast. And that's why that's the classic practice players versus game players. And it's way more amplified at the top level because some guys, you can see their lights out in training. They're a player, and then as soon as people are eating popcorn with the bright lights and there's 10,000 people, it's like, who is that guy? You know what I mean? It happens.
I had one guy when I was playing in Argentina. I had one guy on the team where everybody was talking about him, and I show up to training the first week, and I'm like, holy cow, this guy is unbelievable. Like I've never seen anybody like that here in Canada, never. And then I'm watching because at the time I couldn't play in the games because I was a foreigner. So I go to watch the team play on the weekend. And I asked my roommate, because my roommate was there with me, I'm like, is that guy playing? And he's like, yeah, he's right there in the middle. He's their number 10. And I'm like, I honestly didn't even recognize him because he's one of those guys where he was so good at training, and then you throw him in the game and he just, you know, I don't know if it was nerves or what it was.
Or an off day or whatnot.
But like he was, the player he was in training versus the player he was in the game, it wasn't even close.
And it's amplified with thousands of people watching. It's just like, that's even more, you know? Some people, it's not for them, but I, like, over the times I learned, it's just completely mental. It's just like, can you completely zone in? That's what they call tunnel vision. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's the how do you say, summation of being in the moment so fully.
That's like flow state, right?
Yes, flow. That's what flow state is. It's just like, you see it in basketball, you see it in all the sports. Just like when a guy's pulling up and he's not missing a shot. You know what I mean? He's in that flow state that there's no thought. Because when you get down to it, that's what, I know we're going into a separate topic here, but that's what flow state is. It's the state of no mind.
Well, it's funny too, because I was talking to Evan, our brother Evan plays with the Edmonton Oilers in the NHL, and I was talking to him about it. And I'm like, when you're in those big moments, because he's one of those people where when the bright lights come on, he is just
lights out.
It's like he's got ice in his veins. There's nothing like him. And I was talking to him about it. I'm like, what are you thinking about? He's like, you don't think. It's just you rep it out in practice, and obviously, like we're talking about, you can't mimic the game scenario like you would in training. You can try your best, but when you've got in his case 18,000 people chanting their name and do this, score, you can't practice that. So he's like, honestly, it's just instincts. You rely on instincts, and you can't think. The minute that you start to think in a game, you're in big trouble.
And that's why Bruce Lee said, I don't fear the man who's practiced 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. And that's why, because when you're in front of the biggest crowds and you're facing, I don't know, in soccer's case, for example, you're facing people, the most foul energy in crowds you can imagine. You know what I mean? And it's ice in your veins, because it's just like, I've repeated this thousands and thousands of times. You don't have to think about it. And
a lot of the athletes say that they completely drown out the outside noise. As crazy as that is to say, they say that they kind of forget that they're in the stadium or the arena, because they've practiced it so many times that it's natural, it's instinct. They don't think about it, and they can't even hear the outside noise.
That's why I always say repetition is what removes doubt. It's just reps, you know, and that's why there's no shortcuts. It ain't pretty a lot of the time, but if you want to play at that level, that's what it is.
And that's the thing, right? Like, there's actually no secret to success and, reaching that pinnacle of whether it's sports or business or whatever the case may be. It sounds so cliche, but like, there's actually no secret to success. It's hard work, it's preparation, and it's consistency.
Yeah, it is. And like, last thing I'll say is, like, thinking about that game, with Brazil, is like, I remember thinking when I'm there, I'm like, these guys are playing like they're in the street, you know what I mean? I played so many games in the street soccer, you know what I mean? 5-on-5. And I'm like, these guys are playing like they're, in the favelas. And I think that just genuinely comes from, like you said, pure reps, but also this, I almost want to say, chip on your shoulder. You know what I mean? It's just like, nobody knows my story and where I come from. I don't give a bollocks about these people. I'm here to do my job and do it to the best. You know what I mean?
Well, it's kind of like a Navy SEAL. When they're going in, like, they're not thinking about anything. They're just so locked in. And I feel like with those South American players especially, they're going in, like you said, a chip on their shoder. And a lot of them, it's like their upbringing, if you're trying to compare that to Canadian players, it's like, what are you comparing? Like, they're... how are you going to compare that? You can't. Right? So it's like those guys go in, and it's just a completely different mindset versus I felt like even when I was watching the World Cup, the Canadian team, it's like those guys would be happy with a draw against some of these teams. It's like we went in, we didn't lose. And those the Brazilians, the Uruguayans, the Argentinians, they go in, and it's like we're going in. If we lose or if we don't win, that's a loss. Whether they draw or they, that's a loss.
Because at the end of the day, for a lot of that Canadian team, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Is like, for a lot of them, that was the biggest game they had played in up until that moment. Whereas for the other national teams that they were playing against, that was not the case. You know what I mean? Those guys have been playing in those environments every weekend in their own clubs. So that's why. That's what it stemmed from.
So just another instance of just repping it out.
Right? Repping it out, but then getting into that no mind state when the lights come on. And that's like, that's something that can be cultivated, but it's very hard to teach. You know what I mean? I always tell kids, like, I can give you all the tools in the world, but I can't teach you to play with class. You know what I mean? I can't teach you that. Well,
that's the difference too between playing rep and playing pro. Even when you're playing in a pro academy, until you reach, whether it's the second team or the first team, if you're lucky enough, you don't really have that experience. Even in like TFC Academy, you don't play you're still playing in front of your parents, and like, it's not an actual crowd. So it's, you can't really prepare for that until you get those first team caps.
And like, to correlate it with the Navy SEAL example you gave, it's just like, there's probably a bunch of guys in buds or in post-buds training where you're learning close quarters combat and all that they're probably absolutely lights out, but when bullets are zinging by your head and you're really in the fire, do you still
Yeah.
you know, perform.
Yeah.
That's the extreme of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's that. You know, it's easy to say sitting here in a chair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's like those Monday morning quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Everybody watching Sunday Night Football, they think they know everything.
Exactly.
And, you know, like it's once you're actually under the bright lights, it's a completely different story.
No, completely different.
Yeah. But no, it's that's, I don't know, something for me that I think was the biggest jump from playing here in Canada versus down in South America. You know, it's just, you talked about it, composure. Composure is one of, as coaches now, you know, we didn't even talk about it. We now run Optimal, and, you know, Optimal has grown. We've been doing it now for 5 years, and it's grown to something massive, and, you know, we're going to continue to grow, but we do private, semi-private, and group training. So we can't really replicate that side of it, where it's like, okay, even in team training, it's hard to replicate that, but especially in a one-on-one setting, we can give you the blueprint, we can tell you exactly how you're going to feel and all this stuff, but like until you actually get to that point, there's not really any training that can be done.
Absolutely.
Reps.
It is just reps. You know what I mean? Reps mixed with, and that's why I think, I know there's like around here too, everyone is, for example, is doing yoga. You know what I mean? And all those things. And that's what I feel like has happened with meditation. It's just like everyone and their cousin is meditating. You know what I mean? And it's just like, the point of meditation is to teach you how to bring you into that zone. You know what I mean? And the funny thing is, it's not something that requires effort. It's an effortless act, because as soon as you're putting effort in and you're trying to do it, you're getting in your own way.
Well, it's
At
actually
the deepest level.
it's really hard to be honest. Like,
because it's really hard not to get in your own way, right?
It's
Everyone
really
is
hard.
engineered that way.
even
you know?
like it's human nature to, when you close your eyes, you've got 5 different things popping into your head immediately. And you know, meditation is trying to get rid of all of those thoughts.
Exactly.
And just be still and have, you know, no thoughts.
And flow is the expression of that.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It is hard.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's tried it, like, you know, I'm sure you can relate to that. It's very difficult to turn your brain off, especially as, you know, a professional athlete or a business owner, whatever the case may be. Like, it's human nature to constantly be thinking and overthinking, and, you know, to try to turn those thoughts off. It's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard.
But yeah, it's you know, that's one thing that in sports is, it's very translatable.
So crucial at the highest level anyways. I mean, you know, obviously you get away with it when it's just your friends and family watching the games and whatnot. It's not really a big deal. But in that, and that's why I go back to kids, is like your inner voice and what you're telling yourself, because trust me, I've been in the most hostile environments you can imagine, and people are not cheering you on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're swearing at your grandma, your mom, and everyone else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what you tell yourself, especially after you make a mistake, and you're like, man, that was a crappy pass, or that was like, what was I doing? It's just like, how do you reset to get yourself right back to that moment? Because that's the flow state, is you're here, you're here. Nothing about the outside matters.
Well, that's a great point too, because that's another thing I learned is like, you learn quick to have a poker face. Poker face, I tell all my clients, like, you cannot be that person. And Argentina, they're ruthless. You make a mistake and you show any sort of facial or body language, emotion.
They're running you twice as hard.
They're on top of you. And it's not just like they're coming to crunch you, but they're in your ear 24/7. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, typical Canadian. You can't play.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, like they're in your ear right away.
And what's funny is that people in North America, they watch the Argentinian national team play and they're like, look at these dirty, sleazy guys. You know what I mean? But it's just like, no. It's just like, they see that weak thing in you. It's not saying you're poker face. They're going to try and rip that apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. You know?
Yeah. And it's like, it's just mind games.
Yeah.
You know, they try to get in your head and then you go in at them, yellow card, and in the end, they're the ones winning, right? Like they win the mental warfare and they win the game.
Yes.
So and to be honest with you, that's another thing. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't remember growing up. I feel like nowadays sports psychology is a huge thing. So like obviously in pro clubs, there's obviously the sports psychologist, but like, I don't know, growing up, it wasn't very prominent to have rep players, especially going to sports psychologists. And now a ton of our clients that I talk to, they're like, I'm going to see a sports psychologist because like I can't get over that hump of I make a mistake, I can't bounce back, and I'm constantly overthinking and emphasizing the mistake I just made. And I try giving those examples of like, look, if you play under the bright lights, those guys, and not even just the players on the field, but those fans are going to be torturing you. And it doesn't just stop when the game's done. You know, you've got fans on social media. Like now is brutal, but like they're sending you direct messages. They're sending your family members messages. And even like with betting and stuff like that. Like it's gotten to a point where it's taken such a negative toll on athletes' mental health. Where, you know, even in hockey and in soccer, like some of these pro athletes are having to take leave of absence because like it got to that point where they're like, I can't take this criticism anymore. Because at the end of the day, everybody's human, you know, like.
Yo, you know what it just made me think of? It's just like lack of confidence has killed, criticism has killed more dreams than a lack of confidence ever did. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It's just like that fear of being criticized and being, I don't know, pardon my language, on,
ridiculed.
You know what I mean? Ridiculed from your sport and what you did in the game or whatever, or the fear of not being accepted, regardless if it's in sport or not. That has killed more dreams than anyone's lack of confidence ever has. You know what I mean? And it's spot on because it's the truth.
Well,
you know what I mean?
The sad thing though is that like, for the average Joe watching these players, at the end of the day, they're entertainers. Athletes, actors, all these people, they're entertainers. So the average Joe watching, thinking, oh, I'm going to message them or I'm going to say bad things about them. Those people, their argument is, oh, well, they get paid big bucks.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's in the job description. They get paid millions. They can handle it. And it's like, at the end of the day, they're still human. If somebody comes up to you at your job and every single little thing you do, oh, you're wrong, you do that terribly, like eventually you're going to start to second guess yourself. You're going to doubt yourself, and it's not like if you're working a 9 to 5, it's, you know, you still have those employees that take work home with them, but it's to such a lesser extent than, you know, pro athletes or somebody who's actually being watched by millions of people every single week. It's hard.
And you know what's the funny thing? It's just like, but that's the test, is when people are giving you every reason to not do it and telling you you're the worst in the world. That's the real test. Because I remember listening, I don't know if you know Rob O'Neill. Rob O'Neill is the man who is known to have killed Osama bin Laden. He had spent, prior to joining the SEAL Team 6, I forget how many years he was in the team. I think it's a minimum of like at least 4. He was in SEAL teams deployed. And then if your team captain or whatnot recommends you and he thinks you're at the level, you can put your name in to apply for the SEAL Team 6. And SEAL Team 6 has different colors. So when you get into SEAL Team 6, it's colors based. It's not number based. And I think there's like 3 colors in SEAL Team 6. But anyways, the training is on another level. Already to make it to be a SEAL, it's like there's classes of like 300 and only like 12 graduate. Like it's insane. So then you're a SEAL, and then to become SEAL 6, it's just like those are the people who you get on the phone and the president's calling when they need. So he was saying that when he was going through SEAL Team 6 tryouts, so to speak, he was saying that they'd be in a room and they'd be clearing rooms, and the guys are, it's rooms and there's targets, and the team goes through the room that kills, and the instructors are over top through a mesh and they're looking at you from above. And Rob was saying that the guys would go in, especially he was saying with him, he'd go in, he'd clear the room, and he knew maybe he put his left foot in front of the right wrong or whatever, but he knew he did everything right. Sometimes the instructor would stop, turn on the lights because lights are off. You turn on the ice, start screaming at him. Like, Rob, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? You're putting everyone, there's a safety risk or whatever. But he knew that he didn't do anything wrong. The instructor was testing how he would react to him eating him out and saying, you know, you were piss poor here. And like, so you think at the highest level of that, and who they pick, who are the, you know, modern day ninjas or however you want to call it. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's their test. It's not about doing everything right. It's how do you react when everything is going wrong? That was their test, you know?
Well, the funny thing too is that when they're doing those tests, they go through what they call Hell Week. And they're on like 2 hours of sleep. So it's like already your brain is just like, you know, you're fried. You want to, you need sleep. You need, they're starving you too. Like you're barely eating. And like they're doing all of that while you're, you know, like.
And exactly. That's with buds. They go through Hell Week with buds. But yeah, this SEAL Team 6 training is just like people who made it through that Hell Week. You know what I mean? So they're already the top soldiers in the world. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's just like, I found that so interesting because it's basically they're testing how you react in the face of failure.
Yeah.
And what you do. Are you that type of guy who's be like, no, I didn't do anything wrong? Or you're like, you know what, let's get it over with. You know what, my bad.
Yeah.
My bad. You know what, you're right, let's move on. You know, because when you're in battle, and Rob was talking about that, and you're in the battlefield, you don't have time to ream that guy out. It's just like, man, it's not about what's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's go. Let's move on.
Next action.
Next, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something that, like, I don't know, I remember there was a time, I think it was when was it the U17s or something? And I remember you had a penalty, I think it was, and you struck the post.
Oh,
Was that U17?
I think it was, pre-World Cup,
And then I think it was the coach at the time was giving you an earful or something. That's something that, if you could go back, would you change the outcome of that?
Well, if I could go back, what I would like is to know what I know now.
Hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, that's what I would like to know, because who knows? Maybe the coach was smart enough to realize he's testing me and he's reaming me out just to see how I react.
Yeah.
But because I was beating myself up much more than the coach would have ever beat me up. You know?
Well, that's another thing too that is so important is we've seen firsthand really, really, really good soccer players, Technically, they're gifted, they work their butts off, and you know, they're strong, they're big, they're fast, they're good athletes and good players. But you and I can both tell when a player is going to play pro versus a player who's not. And they can have all the perfect attributes that make a really good soccer player, but mentally, if they're not there, they'll never be a pro. For the exact reasons that we were talking about.
Exactly.
You know, you have to be, even if you're 16 or 17 and you're trying to play pro, you have to be an adult and you have to be mature enough to be able to handle that criticism. Think of a guy like Lamine Yamal. This guy has everybody. He's like the epitome of that. Everybody knows who he is. You know, everybody's comparing him to Messi, and you know, he's the golden child and all this stuff. He's like 18, you know, or 17 or something crazy. And like, you know, everybody's focused on that, but it takes a certain type of person to be able to be a professional athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like above the skill, going back to soccer and our training, like above the skill I see in people's quality in their feet or whatnot, I see it's just like you're having a rough day or whatnot, like your mentality, how you react, you know what I mean? What you're telling yourself, what your inner voice, what your inner dialogue is, you know what I mean? Because I know if your goal is to go and play in front of the bright lights, that's what you're going to need so much more than your quality in your feet, because everybody has the quality. You know what I mean? What you're going to need is that voice inside of your head and that dialogue that's just impenetrable. You know what I mean?
It's easy to be positive when everything's going right.
Exactly.
How positive can you be when everything's going wrong?
Exactly.
And that is
and 10,000 people are watching.
That's
25.
That's the true mark of a pro. Everybody can be happy and positive when everything's going right. But when all hell breaks loose and you can't make a 2-yard pass or a 5-yard pass, then what? How do you react? And that's how you become a pro. And you know, I tell all my clients, there's been clients where, you know, I know how good they are. I know the quality that they have, but some days they show up and they're just not on. They're messing up simple passes. All the little things they're doing wrong. And you can see it in their face and their body language. They're just down on themselves. And the first thing I tell them, I'm like, look, there's a difference. You can treat this as a bad session. I call it a character building session. Be a sponge. The only time it's a bad session is if you take nothing out of it. If you leave the session and you didn't learn anything from that bad session, then yes, it was a bad session. But if you take all of the so-called negatives from that session and you turn that into a positive for the next session, perfect. Every pro has an off day. It's normal.
Exactly. You only lose if you don't learn.
Exactly. That's like the number one thing I tell all my clients when they're having a bad day. It's normal. Pros have it. You know, how do you bounce back?
And the difference with the pros is that those bad days happen very rarely. You know what I mean? That's the difference.
Another way to put it is pros aren't pros because they make no mistakes. Pros are pros because how they react after they make a mistake.
Exactly.
It's very rare that you'll see a pro make the same mistake 2 times in a row.
And I would add that they do the simplest things so well. Better than anyone. It's that what you're saying mixed with like, people think it's like they do the craziest things with the ballers there. It's like, no, they do not mess up the simplest things.
Look at a guy like Sergio Busquets.
Yeah.
This guy played arguably one of the best CDMs of all time. And he's played at the highest level for years and playing with the best players in the world.
Yeah.
He's not one of those flashy guys who's, you know, doing all these kinds of tricks and stuff. just so simple. 1, 2 touches. And I saw a clip of Alphonso Davies talking about it too. He's like, the best, the pros are pros, not because they can do all those fancy tricks, but it's because they play 1 and 2 touches, so simple.
Exactly.
And that, you said it to me before, when you get to those high levels, the coach doesn't care that you can dribble through 3 or 4 guys, because all of the pro guys can do that. But it's, can you make those actions without losing the ball?
Exactly.
Because to be honest, like, the coach will get on top of you for that, for losing the ball, but more than that, all of the players are on top of you, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's so hard to finally maintain possession, and then when you finally get it back and you lose it, it's just like, oh man, I got to run another.
Exactly. You know? And at the highest level, that's like giving up the ball is almost like conceding a goal.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is just like a good coach and players who've been around, they watch how are you reacting when you just gave away that ball. What's your reaction? Are you like, oh, you know, what are you doing? Or you're just like instantly you're hunting. Just like, I'm going to crunch this guy. Give me that ball back. You know what I mean?
It's like Pep Guardiola's 6-second rule, right? It became famous because he wanted everyone to be a dog after they lost the ball. They lost and we press for 6 seconds. And if we don't lose, or if we don't win the ball back after 6 seconds, we get back into position and we just play.
Exactly.
We get back to our defensive structure and we'll wait for a mistake. But that, to me, as a coach, you know, I don't coach teams, but as a private training coach and semi-private group training, like, that's one thing that is crucial, and that's something that I tell all the clients is, how do you react after you make the mistake? Are you one to blame somebody else, or do you say, give me the ball, let's hunt, let's hunt? And that's something that when I went to Argentina, the first thing that the coach told me, he said, Ryan, you play too much like a Canadian. So what does that even mean? And he's like, like, when I was playing here, everyone's like, oh, you're so physical and you don't take anything from anyone. And I go down there and they say, oh, you play like a Canadian. So I asked him, I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, you're too soft and you're playing too casually right now. When you lose a ball, go hunt. Go win the ball back.
Exactly.
And if you can't win it after a few seconds, okay, drop back into position and we'll get back into our defensive shape.
It's a mentality thing. Because as a coach, you're directing the army. So you think about it from the coach's side. Every player, you want to put everyone in their position who you know is going to do the absolute best for the army. Something bad happens on the side, and something bad happens at, I'll give the example, war. Are you like, oh my God, it's that, or do you carry on with your job? It sucks. You know, war is the most extreme example, but you put it in a soccer game. All right, you gave away the ball. All right, we had a goal against. How are you reacting? Is it just like, oh, bro, what were you doing? What were you doing? You gave me that ball. Or it's just like, let's go. Let's move on. You know what I mean? Next play, I'm eating this guy up. You know what I mean?
It's a pack mentality.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
That's something that, I don't know. For me, I find a lot of players around here, it's more individual effort versus collectively. You know, you could blame the team coach. You can put the blame on whoever you want, but at the end of the day, it says a lot about your character as an individual. And that is something that's vitally important for young players, is to be a leader. Don't just go and be a follower. Don't be among the herd, but you got to be a leader.
And remember, leaders lead with action. It's not, a leader isn't the one who's screaming at everyone on the field and telling them let's go, but they're playing piss poor themselves. You know what I mean? A leader is you're leading with, you know, this, I'll shout him out. My captain when I first went to the 96 Quinta team in Defensor, his name was Corbo. And that guy, there was 2 other center backs who could ping a long ball better than him and played better than him. But when he got on the field, he was an absolute general. And that's why he wore the captain's armband. Quality for quality, he probably didn't deserve to be starting 11. But because of the energy he brought and the player he was, any scrum, he's the first player in talking to the ref. Hey, ref, come on. What do you think? You know, he was the first one. Leader. Everyone made a mistake and he saw that a player was down on themselves, he'd be screaming across the room, hey, come on, come on, let's go. You know? That's why he was in the team, and that's why he wore the captain's armband. He was leading with action.
And it doesn't always take the best player to be a leader, right? And it's like, you have to have that energy, and it's so true. It's like going to war, you know? Like, for guys like that, if they're telling me, let's go, it's like, okay, I'm not going to second get, like, let's fight for one another, right? Like, it's a team sport at the end of the day. And for guys like that, it's not just leading with words, but you know, you gotta lead with action, obviously.
Exactly. And it's almost like you're a reflection of the spirit of the team and the coach. That's what the captain is. You know? So 88 minutes, 89 minutes, you're up 1-0. You're sliding into every tackle like it's minute 1.
Yeah. Head
That's
first.
that's what a captain does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's that's one thing that's like it's super important. It's not just you lead by words, but you lead by example. You have to.
Yeah,
and
you have to.
there's always players like that, but you have to be. That's what I tell everyone is like you have to be one of those players. And it goes back to our earlier point. It's easy to be a good leader when everything's going well, but how do you lead when everything's down in the dump? Your team, you're not getting results. You guys aren't playing well. Are you still going to be a leader? Or are you going to shut down?
Yeah. That's the test of your character right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a good coach knows that before you even step foot on the field because he fielded you.
Yeah.
He put you out there, you know what I mean? So
And that's something that we try to preach to all of our clients is you have to be, this is more than just soccer training. This is more than just you go on the field and you're a leader. Like you have to be a good role model on and off the field. And that's why we, our motto is mentoring the next generation. We want to mentor the next generation of players. We don't just want to be that coach that they come to for an hour and they leave and, they don't care. Like there's been instances where we've seen our clients in grocery stores and they run across the grocery store and they say, "Hey coach, nice to see you," and we start talking. Like that to me says a whole lot more than, okay, I taught this kid he was able to do 50 keep-ups and I taught him how to do 250.
Exactly.
That to me resonates way more than just, okay, I made you a better soccer player.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree.
But I kind of, I don't know, for me it brings me to my next point of it pains me to bring this up because there's been so many instances where we've come across very talented players and we've run thousands of sessions. If there was a
session counter,
it'd be broken. If we were getting belts
I'd be triple champ status.
Belts, if jiu-jitsu would be third degree black belts. We've run so many sessions, but one thing that really hurts is when you see a player with all the potential in the world and one, they're scared of making mistakes, but more importantly, it's not because they're scared of making mistakes for the coach, they're scared of making mistakes because of their parents. And that, to me, is the best way I can put it is more parents are ruining their kids' dreams than injuries or coaches ever will.
Or the kids themselves,
and it's like those parents that when you get into the car, before you even put your seatbelt on, these parents are ripping you to shreds. And it's like, you can, I'm sure you can Google a few instances where, a few pro athletes made it when their parents are super hard on them. But I would argue that I could find 5 times as many the opposite way, where the kids, especially at a young age, when they're like 12, 11, 12, 13 years old, and they get in the car and their parents are screaming at them and, "Oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that?" The kids just say, by the time they get like 14, 15, they're like, I don't want to play. It's too much pressure. And the irony of all of that is you ping that parent, the dad, the mom a ball, you pass them a hard ball into their feet, where's the touch going to go?
Exactly.
It's going to go 25 feet away from them, right? Like it's always the people who don't have that experience themselves who are either trying to live it through their kid or they just think that they know it and they're trying to teach their kid. And sometimes it's not out of bad intent, but it's just the way that you're delivering the message can come across as argumentative or negative. And you got to think as a young kid, you're playing the sport to have fun. No kid is playing at 10 or 11 thinking, okay, I'm really good and I'm going to play pro. Like everybody has that dream, but at that age, it's just, I want to have fun. I want to compete and I want it to be fun. So kids that get in the car and their parents are on top of them saying, "Oh, why did you do this? You made this mistake." And it's like, the kid's going to learn. The best way to learn is through mistakes. That's why through our training, we don't say don't make mistakes. We encourage mistakes because that's how you learn. But that to me is like the most sad thing. You're ruining your kids. It could be a dream, but you're ruining all of the fun in the game because you're way too hard on them.
And I think that just, every parent is only doing as the best that they know how to do.
Yeah.
Right. So like, and that in large part is from their parents and how their parents were with them, mixed with their own life and experiences that they gathered along the way.
But it's a new generation.
Yes. Mixed with technology and all that kind of, but I think that like the real thing that's happening there where parents, and you see it a lot more in hockey than you do with soccer, granted, with hockey parents. Yeah, you see it and it's bad.
It's become a lot more common in soccer now.
It's the parents who've never achieved those heights themselves. They're trying to achieve it through their kid. And the mistake is the whole psychology that goes and that's required to achieve it. And they don't know because they didn't themselves. And what they're doing is they're basically selling their kid short because they don't understand that for it to stick, the kid has to come to it on his own.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that it never happens, that a parent is on their kid's ass all the time and he makes it. Like it happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's just very less likely.
It's less likely.
Yeah.
The kid has to come to that realization on his own that like, oh, I got to bust my ass. I have to do things that I hate doing, but this is the cost of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if the motivating voice in your head is always your dad and your mom that's making you push it, you can last, but it's much more difficult. You know? It's much more difficult.
It's very less common for that to happen. That to me, like the most important thing when you're trying to play high level sports is you have to know your why. Why am I doing this? Because in those moments where you're waking up at 6 a.m. to go run when it's minus 20 outside.
Nobody was telling us to do that when we were young.
No one, but it comes from that inner drive. Like you have to know why you're doing this. Am I doing this for the money and the fame? Like if that's the reason, you're probably not going to go very far. But it has to come from within. You have to have such a concrete reason as to why you're doing something, because in those moments you're going to have the self-doubt where you're getting up super early and it's like, oh man, I want to hit the snooze. I want to stay. It's cold out. I want to wrap myself in the covers. That's it's human nature to want to shy away from discomfort. But you have to go far in sports and in life, you have to throw yourself nose deep right into it.
Exactly. And I find that kids who come from tough environments, it's much more black and white. So the reason behind their motivation is much plainer. And it's just like, I want to get out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to be here anymore. And I think that's the quote unquote, I know they have a lot of disadvantages, but that's the quote unquote advantages of coming from a tougher environment. It's just like your reasoning why you want to grind and get out of bed at 5 a.m. is so much clearer. It's just like, this is not what I want for my life.
That's the thing too. It's not about them anymore as individuals. They're doing it not only for them, but for their entire family. It's for everyone. It's like, okay, this is my ticket to get all of us out of here. And you have a perfect example of, if you want to talk about
because
it.
That's a good you reminded me. When I went to Defensor at 15, 16 in Uruguay, moved away from home. I had been with the team about a year, and I actually showed up to training one day, and that's not something you do in pro clubs. You don't show up to training late and think it flies. So I showed up, and I was running because it was 2 buses, city buses, and then you had to walk about 3 kilometers. So I ran the 3 kilometers because I was running behind schedule. I get into the change room, and this was at the time when I didn't even speak Spanish yet. So I went into the change room, and there's only one friend on my team. I'd been basically a mute for a year. I barely spoke to anyone. There's one friend on my team who spoke English, but I get into the change room, and everyone's sitting around, and the coach is in the middle. So in my head, I'm thinking, I must be in trouble. You know what I mean? So I sit down, and I'm quiet, found my spot, and the coach is talking, and he carried on. I came in, and he looked at me. Everyone looked at me, and I just sat down, and then he continued talking. When he finished the talk, I went to my buddy who spoke English, and I said, well, what was that all about? And he said, Pablito, his name was Pablo, he's not here, his dad had just passed. And I had just become fairly close with the people on the team because it's been about a year, right, since I'd been there. And they said, we're going to go see Pablo after training if you want to come with us. I said, yeah, of course I want to go see him, So we do training, finish up. There's about 6 of us that get in the car. We go up, drive to his house, and Pablo's there. He never misses training. Never. And we go into his house, and this was the first time, 15, 6-year-old kid from Canada, I seen a house without a roof and without windows. It was literally like almost like a blanket as his roof. And
like tarp?
Yeah, tarp.
Okay.
It was tarp. and there was no windows to his house, no glass. It was just, you know, a square.
So like a shack.
Yeah, exactly. And he had like 4 or 5 sisters, and his dad had passed in a work accident, and he was in tears when I got there. His whole family was in tears. One of them was, up until that point, at 15, 16 years old, is probably the grimmest environment that I'd ever seen in my life, you know? And the kids on my team is just like, well, you know, those are a lot of our teammates, you know? But I had never seen it up until that point.
Yeah.
And in my head, all this stuff about, you know, how I would feel if I was in his shoes, all I was going through. But then in my head, it dawned on me too. I'm just like, that's why this guy, this is why I was seeing it firsthand. I'm like, this is why this kid comes into training every single day, like all the other kids, but on another level, I was seeing and I was connecting down. I'm like, this is why this kid never takes the piss.
Yeah.
He's grinding every single day, like from the moment warm-up starts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's on it because he was already, and then now after that accident, he was gonna have to be the provider at 16 for his family.
Yeah.
And his 3, 4 sisters. You know what I mean? At 16 years old. Me at 16 years old, like, you know what I mean? If I didn't go to Uruguay, I would have been a dummy, you know what I mean? To say the least, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coming from Canada. And this kid, you know, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, wow, like no wonder. And that kid didn't even make it to first team, coming from that environment. You know what I mean? He's probably working some odd job, and he probably found a way, because that's how kids there, they always find a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he never made it big league.
Yeah.
He was a great player, never made it big league, because you're in the snake pit. You know what I mean, out there.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, like, at even 16 years old, after that I passed, I'm thinking, this is what I want for my kid. I want him to be able to see kids like this, who really come from it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who are really, like, this is real hunger.
Yeah.
This is real hunger, you know what I mean? And that's why kids here, they go, they play rep soccer, and they're having the piss, and it's not their fault.
Yeah.
It's the environment.
They don't know any better.
They don't know any better.
That story is giving me like goosebumps.
You know?
That's wild.
I'll never forget it, you know? I'll never forget it, you know? And that was hugely pivotal as for a 15, 16-year-old boy, you know?
Well, those are the types of experiences, like one of the greatest quotes I've heard is, some experiences can be taught, others need to be lived.
Yes.
And that's one of those experiences where you can hear about it, you can read about it, but until you're actually in it and you see it firsthand, you're like, holy moly, this is like, I've never seen this. A little boy coming from Canada, and you know, some people here definitely have it rough, but you know, our upbringing, it's not like we had it rough. We obviously, our family wasn't perfect, but I mean, you know, you go there as a 15, 16-year-old Canadian boy, and you see that, and you're like, what am I seeing? Is this real life?
Yeah. It's not, it's like, you know, the curtains have been pulled. You know what I mean? It's not, this is why, and in large part, this is why kids from South America a lot of the time are destroying European leagues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's their environment. And I'm not saying every kid is from those environments in the shack, but you don't know how many I've been in my club. Yeah. That, like, bro, they're living in shacks with, some of them had like 6, 7 siblings, you know what I mean? And what other reason and what avenue do they have in their life to get their family out of that other than football? Yeah. Because that's what they're good. They don't have, what do you think? You think going through school is going to help? No, it's not going to help.
That, and it's not like other sports are very prominent.
No, it's this.
It's just football. And that's why, like, you look at countries in South America, in Africa, that's why they export so many of their players. That's why European clubs are constantly looking for African and South American players, because they know that those guys are just dogs. Like, they will not stop. Yeah. And they come from, you know, like I don't know,
it's a real snake pit. Yeah,
it's like, I guess you can say the positive in that, the silver lining would be, you know, I'm what do I have to lose? You know, I've got all of that junk in the back of my mind, but like, this is the dream. I gotta go. You know, what else do I have to lose?
It's much easier to leave things behind when you have very little to leave behind. Yeah. Right?
That was one of the biggest things that I found. Like, it was so hard. And it goes back to what we were talking about, maturity, to be a pro. One of the biggest things that I found, like, that was so difficult when I left was leaving everyone behind. It's like, you're a kid, you're 16, 17, you're leaving, you're going to a country where it's 11-hour plane ride from where you are. It's not like you can hop in the car and go home.
Don't speak the language.
You don't. There's a cultural difference. There's a language barrier. You don't know anyone. like you're going there as a child and you come back as a man because you leave everyone behind. You leave your friends, your family, significant others, like everybody's left in the rearview mirror. And that's why it kind of ties back to what we were talking about. Knowing your why is so important, because in those moments where you're second guessing yourself, it's like, okay, I need to take a breath here and remember why I'm doing this.
Exactly. And for those kids, like we said, it's really easy to remember your why. You know? Coming from our environment, like you said, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for us, but you know what I mean? At even 15, 16, I realized even the kids that we went to school with in the hood here, what you call that, you know what I mean? It's nothing compared to those kids. You know what I mean?
And we had, like, you know, we're fortunate enough to have so many different opportunities. We grew up in a society where you had so many different avenues to explore. But that's why I'm so grateful that, you know, both of us, we took the unorthodox route. You know, it's not like it's hockey. Hockey here, you've got the path. You've got rep hockey to OHL or NCAA, and then hopefully get drafted into the NHL, which is what happened with Evan. You know, he went from Oakville to OHL to NHL. You know, granted, there were times where he had to go overseas and play and stuff like that, but he ended up, the route is so much more simple than it is for soccer. You know, here it's like, you have rep. You have Toronto FC, which is the only professional club in the area, and you've got Montreal Impact, which is 600 kilometers away. So in the province of Ontario, you've got one pro team. You got to go to Quebec to go play another pro club, but you know, even then, if you play within the Toronto FC system, the jump that, even if you make it to the first team, the jump from going from the first team at TFC over to Europe or somewhere else, like it's so far-fetched versus, you know, when we talk about hockey, it's kind of like, you know, it's not an easy road whatsoever, but at least the road is paved.
And like the proof is in the pudding. How many European clubs buy kids from Toronto FC Academy?
Exactly. It
never happens. You know what I mean? Or Montreal Impact or Vancouver Academy. Alphonso Davies is the rare case. You know what I mean? It's just like, it doesn't happen because they're going to the breeding grounds in South America, where it's just like, to start with, those kids are going to the stadium from the time they're 6, 7 years old with their dad, and their dad has a tattoo of the team that they're going to see. It's a religion. You know what I mean? So those kids are born into that. And then on top of that, the whole environment of like, they build their way up in the system, that it's just like, it's the equivalent of being in a UFC World Champion gym. It's just like, you got to go through absolute ballers to get to the absolute top. So it's just like, no wonder that the European clubs are going there. It's like, yeah, this kid's ready. You know what I mean? Look what he had to come through. You know what I mean? Like,
and it kind of goes back to like the player identification here, and whether it's Canada soccer, it stems from the top, Canada soccer down to Ontario soccer. Most of these quote unquote scouts, where are they going? Where are they going? They're going to, OPDL markets it as, they're going to these OPDL games. But it's like, I would make the argument that if Alphonso Davies were in OPDL, he wouldn't have been discovered. Like, that's the best way to put it. You know, like if you go anywhere in Europe or South America, you've got these scouts that are legitimate scouts who are going out to local playgrounds and just watching kids play. Because there are stories like that, I'm sure. You can look it up. There's stories where scouts go to playgrounds and fields and stuff like that, and they watch the players, and the players that are really good, they go and talk to them. Hey, where do you play?
They do.
Oh, you want to come try out with our team? You know, like that is true player identification. Here, what do we have? We've got scouts who go and they say, oh yeah, you know, I'm going to be at this big ID camp, or I'm going to be at this OPDL Cup final. Give me a break. Give me a break. And even if they are there, you're at one tournament or one event, and how are you going to identify a player after seeing them once? These top level scouts, they watch players dozens of times before they invite them out. Dozens. But here in Canada, I watched them on OPDL Cup. He's a good player, trust me. What do you mean? What do you mean? You saw him play once. How do you know he's a good player?
And granted, like, I'm not so familiar with the girls soccer route, but I do know that it is different for girls than it is for boys here in Canada. You know? But I think that, it's not going to happen as a young boy if you're still 15, 16 years old. You're under, like, almost darn near 0% chance if you're playing OPDL at 16, 17 and you want to go to pro, because it's not about like this or that. It's the environment that you're in is so far off the environment of other kids in pro clubs. It
It's
is
not
so
a
far off.
professional environment.
And that's why the reason that I had been able to stick when I was that age, why, is because I was a kid that at 15, 16 years old, I was waking up at 5, 6 a.m. I was putting in 4 or 5 hours of hard training every single day. And because in my head, I'm thinking, and I knew this, because I knew for boys, like I said, for boys is different than girls in a lot of aspects here in Canada, because the global scale of soccer is much different for men than it is for women in a lot of senses. Like you can go through college and university as a girl and get signed to a pro team.
Yeah.
It's unheard of in soccer for men.
Yeah.
You're not going to go play for UCLA and get signed to no, that doesn't happen. You know? So like it's the reason for it is because not a lot of kids are going to be doing the work of putting in 5 hard hours every day like those kids out there are doing. Not to mention the experience of playing around really good players. They're not going to do that. So that's why the jump, that's why a lot of kids at 12, 13, even up till 13 years old, some kids who have real talent in Canada, they're at the same level as other kids out there in Europe or in South America. It's when they get to the 15, 16-year-old mark, the gap increases hugely.
100%.
Because of the environment mixed with the players they're playing with, it just... You can't compare OPDL to Palmeiras Academy. No. You can't. You can't replicate that environment. And that's why with us, I think the great thing and why I'm so passionate about it is I feel like for the people who really hop on board and understand what they're walking into, we're merging the gap from a rep pay-to-play system to if you're good enough to stick to a pro academy system. We're merging the gap, you know? That's what we're doing.
I really wish we had more cameras and phones, and I wish we had everything documented from when we were growing up, because you talk about these things, and I remember it so vividly. So vividly, going out in Oakville, and I had the greatest role model in the world, you. Growing up, I would watch you, and this guy is on his hands and knees, yakking after training. He throws up, and you go again, and you go again, and it's like, this is unseen. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, here in Canada,
But like, that's why you were so successful, is because you were putting in the work that nobody else did. And then you went to TFC, you scored the highest on the fitness testing. This is the kind of stuff that as a kid, you strive to have role models like that. You do. And nowadays, I feel like it's even less common that you have these absolute savages that are going out at 6 a.m, and that's something that we're trying to teach. But like, the faces that I get after explaining that, kids, they look at me wide-eyed like this, and they're like, Ryan, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you're always going to be misunderstood. Think about all the parties in high school, and oh, why don't you come out and let's go do this and do that? And it's like, sorry, I got to be up early. I got to train. And they're like, what do you mean? What are you training for? And it's like, you'll see. You'll see, right?
And that's why, coming from our environment, this is just like, comfort is the poison and proxy of growth. You know what I mean? And we're so much more comfortable here than kids in those other countries. So it's just like, for a young 15, 14-year-old kid, so why would I do that?
Comfort's a drug.
Yeah, like why would I wake up at 5 a.m. before the school bus and go running with ankle weights on?
I don't need to.
No, like, you know, it's because it's just, but a kid who doesn't have a choice, or he does, everyone always has a choice, but it's just like you wake up in the morning and there's six of your siblings around you. There's, you know? And so that's the difference, you know? It's just like, I get it. It's so hard to give kids that fire here to go and do that. But all I can do is, and we can do, and I know we do it, is try and paint a picture. It's just like, no, this is what it is on a global scale. It's not, you're in hockey, you know? If you're in hockey here in Canada, it's like being in Brazil for soccer. If you want to play soccer, it's a global thing.
You're not just competing with your OPDL teammates and your opponents in OPDL. You're competing with that kid in Africa and that kid in South America who's doing those 6 a.m. runs. And then who goes to school, and after school they train again. And then they go with the team.
In a pro club, you know what I mean?
How are you telling me you're serious about being a pro? when all you do is train at OPDL, or maybe you come to us once a week. You know, like you cannot. It's apples to oranges. You can't compare. And that's why I get so passionate about talking about this kind of stuff, because we've seen it firsthand. We understand what it takes to get there. It's not like we're walking the walk, or we're talking the talk, but we haven't walked the walk.
We
understand what it takes to get there, but like, again, it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no secret. It's consistency. It's hard work, and it's dedication.
And that's the thing. We understand what it takes to get there, but there's this deep underlying understanding that I know most kids will not do it. So what my goal, I think, is I just try and keep the fun in it as much as possible for them, you know? Because if you, on a psychological aspect, if you find a way to keep it fun, there's much more likelihood that you'll keep showing up. And maybe your goal isn't to play in the Champions League, but maybe your goal is to have a free ride at university. You can do it. You know, but you got to keep the love in it. You got to find a, you know, if you don't find a way to wake up and love it, like I said last podcast, you know, Mike Tyson said that best. He said, discipline is doing what you hate to do, but doing it like you love it. You know what I mean? That's what it is. If you can find a way, because it sucks to work, dude. There's no sugarcoating it. It sucks. But if you can find a way to love it and stick with it, then you got a chance.
And that's why you're always going to be misunderstood. People are going to look at you like you're crazy. There's something wrong with you. There's a few loose screws. That's what it takes to be a pro. It really, and this goes more than just being a pro athlete. This is what it takes to be successful in life. You have to be so obsessed with what you want to do that everybody around you is going to be misunderstood. There's always got to be somebody flipping burgers, right? And that's not a knock to them, but it's just, you know, some people are wired differently. And if you want to get to that point, you got to work. You have to work. There's no two ways about it. You got to work. And, you know, like that to me is probably the biggest takeaway I've learned from soccer. And what I use in business now is I work like there's, you know, nobody else. I don't compete with anybody. I truly don't believe in competition against anybody else, because I'm the most harsh critic of myself. Nobody will criticize me more than I will criticize myself. And that's something that I've learned to take away from soccer and implement it in business. And I think that's why we're having a lot of success with Optimal, is because when the general of the ship is leading, and it's not just, you know, talking the talk, but you're walking the walk, it was like we were talking about leaders, captains of the team. Like, you have to have that energy, and you have to be able to show everybody that you're not just one of those people that's going to talk about it and not actually put the work in.
Exactly. And like, touching on that comparison thing is like, the old cliche saying is like, comparison is the thief of joy, you know? And I think that if you're always comparing yourself to, we bring it to the microcosm of soccer and rep soccer or whatnot. It's just like, if you're always comparing yourself to other people, then you're not just going to be focused on the things that you really have to do. And you're short-sighted in the aspect that when you get to the highest level, if that's what you want, everybody's good. So it's about finding the way that you're good yourself. Your expression, how you play, you know what I mean? Because everybody's good. Everyone will ping a ball 40 yards right down your chest. You know what I mean? Bright lights on, that's a separate thing, maybe. You know what I mean? But everyone can do that. So how do you show your greatness? You know what I mean? And it comes to not comparing yourself to other people. It's like, oh, this guy does that better than me. It's like, no, it doesn't matter. Do you? That's in the purest form.
That's such a hard thing, though, nowadays with social media. It's so hard. Like, everybody posts their highlight reels and this and that, and like, how many clients have come up to us and said, oh, do I need a highlight tape? Do I need to send it here? Do I need to? That's a whole separate topic, but you know, you're comparing yourself to somebody's highlight tape, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Because you got to remember that that's their absolute best. That's their best. And you, after your worst day, you're going to go watch that and scroll on social media and say, oh, I'm competing with this guy or this girl. And it's like, no, you're not. You're competing with yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's why I'm excited to have, you know, we got some really good guests planned out for the we've got some, I'm telling you, like,
different perspectives.
Absolutely different, you know, and I'm really excited for that.
That's what excites me about this podcast, is it's not just soccer related. There's so many different lessons that are going to be taught along the way. And I'm excited to learn from you, from all the guests that we're bringing on, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And, you know, it's just, be a sponge. Always learn.
Yeah.
You can learn anything. You can learn something from the bus driver, you know,
100%.
like everybody has a lesson to teach you.
100%.
So there's a reason you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yeah.
You got to listen.
When the student's ready, the teachers appear. That's it. That's it, brother. Yeah.
So that's exactly why, you know, I'm so passionate about, you know, what I do, what we do for a living. It's the old saying, it sounds cliche, but love what you do and you never work a day in your life.
Amen.
And, you know, I've spoken to quite a few parents about that, and they say, oh, Ryan, you're lucky. I said, I'm the luckiest person in the world. But you got to earn your own luck. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
You
Luck is earned.
You got to go in the trenches. You got to work your butt off, and you know, you plant the seeds, and you know, you reap the benefits. You watch them grow, and it's one of those things, right? Like there's been so much blood, sweat, and tears in Optimal, and that's why I'm forever grateful for everybody who's walked through the doors, all the coaches, all the clients, all the parents, people behind the scenes.
Even old Brunch over here.
Behind the scenes, you know, like
Jamie.
There's so many people that, you know, this is so far from just a one-man show. Everybody has contributed positively to the growth of Optimal, and I'm just very excited because there's so much in the works. This is going to go far beyond just soccer training, and you know, like it brings me so much emotion and so much joy because it really is the start of something special. And you know, we've been doing it now for 5 years. But it feels like we're brand new. It feels like
absolutely,
like there's so much left in front of us. And like it brings me so much joy, and that to me is my why. That's why I get up at 4:30 in the morning and I work like there's no tomorrow, and I'm drinking 3 coffees a day. Like there's just this constant drive, urge. Like there's so much built up fire in me that I have so much to give, and that to me is the most important thing. I don't do what I do for money whatsoever. I do what I do because I genuinely love what I do.
Yes.
And that is the culture that we've built within Optimal. Every single coach that we've brought in genuinely loves what they do. They're not here to be a coach for an hour and leave and never talk to you again. They're constantly checking up on you. One of our coaches, Marcus, he's been with us from almost the very beginning. He's in Portugal playing pro right now. He's constantly checking in with his clients. Hey, how are you doing? How's the team doing? Like, it's just people who genuinely care. It's not just this face that we put on and, you know, after the hour, 90-minute, 2-hour session's done, you never hear from us again. You know, like this is genuine people building something that's far beyond soccer training. And that is what I absolutely love about it.
Yeah, me too, brother. Me too. And I'm really grateful to be able to do this with, you know, of course you and, you know, family and people who've been in it a while, and I know that are good people. You know what I mean? I really feel like at a grassroots level, this is going to affect soccer in Canada on a macro scale, and hopefully also just people in general here. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not even just teaching the kids at all. We've taught a lot of parents things, and obviously, you know, granted, they've taught us so much. I've got, you know, so many mentors that I've met along the way, and invaluable lessons that they've taught me, but you know, we are very knowledgeable in our space, and we've taught a lot of parents a lot of different things that go far beyond just soccer training. This isn't a soccer training business. No. We're truly trying to mentor the next generation of players, and in doing so, we're actually helping parents. We're providing tons of value, not only for players but for the entire family, and that to me is something that will stick with me for many years to come.
Amen.
And that's what I'm looking forward to. But I feel like that's a good spot to wrap it up.
Darn good,
You know, this is our very first episode. Like we said, we're going to be co-hosts. We're going to be bringing on a lot of different guests, a lot of special individuals and people that are very interesting.
Different point of views, like
to say the least.
To say the least.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and like I said, I'm excited to learn from them and you know, share different stories and create new memories with them. With that being said, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This is stuff you're not going to want to miss.
We'll see you in a flash.
Thanks for tuning in.